What is up guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Hamster and today we got three very good phones over here and I'm super excited to talk about these three. I'm going to put them side by side with each other. I'm going to go through a few key areas and then I'm going to help you decide which one would be very good for you. Because you know what, these three phones, when they were made to compete with each other. And after using these phones for quite a bit, I wonder why would people want to pay extra few $100 or maybe even $1,000 depending on where you're from to get those flagship brothers of theirs. And to be honest, they are really good flagships in their own right. So we have here the OnePlus 80, which is basically the upgraded version of the OnePlus 8. Next up, we have the Galaxy S20 FE, which basically is the S20e, which wasn't released this year. And lastly, over here, we have the iPhone 12. So if you're getting the 12 or 12 mini, it's exactly the same. The only difference, of course, is the size of this. So in terms of the specs, in terms of the performance, I don't expect a major difference between the 12 mini and the iPhone 12. So if this actually bothers you, what I can suggest is that you can just squint your eyes a little bit, make it a little bit smaller so that this iPhone 12 here will become a mini. So now that we got all of that out of the way, let's get it started. So we're going to talk about the price over here first, and it gets really complicated depending on where you're from. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the US prices. So the OnePlus 80 launches at $750, while the Galaxy S20 FE comes in at $699. The iPhone 12 comes in at $799, which is the most expensive of the bunch, but if you want to go lower, you can get the 12 mini for $699. So we're going to kick off this comparison video with the design and build, and I will give it to the OnePlus 80 and iPhone 12. Between these two phones, they are both built very nicely. You have your glass on the front and back on both of these phones, but on the iPhone 12, you have the ceramic shield on the front. So it does give you that extra protection in case if you drop this. So between these two phones, on the 80, it's easy to grip and easy to hold. It does have that curve on the side, so if gripping this, it's actually pretty comfortable. But on the iPhone 12, I would give it a slight edge because it does have that boxy design like on the iPhone 4 and iPhone 5 if I'm not wrong. And it actually does give you a little bit more grip compared to the 80. It does have that, kind of sharp edges here. It's actually much easier to hold. It's actually, it's pretty good, and the fact that you can actually make this stand on a table is actually pretty interesting. But on the Galaxy S20 FE, it does have a nice matte finish on the back. To be honest, I've been using this phone the longest. It doesn't really bother me that much because on all of these three phones, I have already slapped on the case on it, but people may not like the plastic on the back. People may not think it's so premium, but to be honest, looking at it again, it's very similar to the Galaxy Note 20. They have something called Glastick, which basically is just plastic. But to be honest, it does look good, it does feel good. But of course, if you do tap on it, it does have that plastic feel. Between these three phones, yes, definitely you're going to get more scratches on the S20 FE, but in terms of durability, I think the S20 FE actually does better. On the 80 and iPhone 12, yes, it's made out of glass, it can withstand a lot more scratches, but if you do drop it a lot, yes, in the end of the day, glass will break. So now let's talk about the displays on three of these phones. I'm going to start off with the iPhone 12. And to be honest, in terms of the overall brightness, overall usage of it, it is very, very good. It does have that Super Retina XDR display. It's basically Apple's way of just saying it's an OLED screen. It's a good display, definitely no doubt. The colors are really good. And I've been using the iPad for a long time and I really like the display there. And over here, you got your OLED screen on an iPhone 12. And in Malaysia, where it gets really sunny a lot of the time, the brightness on this is actually, I would say, the best among these three. But on both of these phones, the 80 and S20 FE, they do have that OLED screen, HD+, and in 2020, a 120Hz display. So using these phones in general, it's much more fluid compared to the iPhone 12. And actually, I do prefer the higher refresh rate compared to so-called the better display on the iPhone 12. But between these two phones, I would actually give it to the OnePlus 80 in peak brightness. Like I said, in Malaysia, it gets really sunny. The OnePlus 80 actually does better compared to the S20 FE we have over here. Also, I'm going to show you some pictures on all of these three phones over here, and I'm going to let you guys compare with these three phones. Tell me which one actually looks better for you. Of course, this I'm recording with my smartphone, so the colors might change, but just let me know. What do you feel about these pictures over here? So I'm going to put them side by side. I'm going to go through some of these photos here. Let me know about the color, let me know about the saturation, the contrast among these three phones over here. And keeping on to that front display, let's talk about the notch. And of course, the worst I would give it to the iPhone 12. It does have that very dated notch over here. It's the same one as you won't find on an iPhone 10. It's very big, it's very large over here to have your earpiece speaker over here, to have your camera. But again, in 2020, everybody wants to be, more bezel-less. And look at the sides here, it does have a lot of bezels and the notch is pretty ugly. And then we come to both of these phones, which they do have a cutout on the top. And between these two, the 8T is pushed to the side and the S20 FE is of course right at the center. And between these two, depending on what's your usage like, if you're a pro gamer, I would say the 8T would be a bit better, because if you're playing games, you're holding it like this, you may not want to touch the sides over here too much. And on the S20 FE, it's placed at the center, which actually does give you a bit more symmetrical feeling to it, but it does have that silver kind of ring to it. If you put it there and you off your phone and you look at it, it does have that, that glowing thing, which sometimes really looks a bit weird. Both of these notches are really tiny, so watching content, Netflix, YouTube, it will not really bother you too much. So talking about the notch, let's talk about the selfie cameras. On the S20 FE, it does come with a 32 megapixel sensor. On the OnePlus 8T, it does come with a 16 megapixel shooter, while on the iPhone 12, it does come with that 12 megapixel sensor. And on the back of these phones, let's start off with the Galaxy S20 FE. It does come with your 12 megapixel main lens, your 12 megapixel ultra wide, and your 8 megapixel telephoto. And on the iPhone 12, it does come with your 12 megapixel main lens and your 12 megapixel ultra wide as well. And on the OnePlus 8T, comes with 48 megapixel main lens, your 16 megapixel ultra wide, and of course your macro and depth camera. Both are able to record up to 4K at 60 FPS. So in terms of video quality, photo quality is about the same. I will be doing a full camera comparison video between these three phones. So of course, do check out that video and I'll leave the link in this video once it's done. But in general, what I can say is that the iPhone 12 and the Galaxy S20 FE actually does better compared to the OnePlus 8T. On the iPhone 12, definitely going to get more natural colors. The details are actually much better over there. With the S20 FE in general, it's pretty similar to the S20 Ultra, and have done actually a video on that, so you guys can check that out as well. And with OnePlus 8T over here, it's the same thing with OnePlus and it comes to cameras. It is good, but not really that great. And that macro and depth, although it does have more cameras, but it doesn't really help me in the overall picture. Sometimes it looks a bit off, but overall it will still give you a very good set of photos. So I got good news for you guys. For all three of these phones, they do have stereo speakers. So I can play some clip over here, and do let me know in the comments down below which one sounds better. So now we're going to talk about the battery and charging, because it gets a little bit interesting over here. On the iPhone 12, you get a 2815 mAh battery, and on the S20 FE and OnePlus 8T, on both of these phones, you're going to get a 4500 mAh battery. So the fastest charging you're going to get is of course from the OnePlus 8T. It does have that Warp Charge 65, so it's able to charge up from 0% all the way to 100% in just over half an hour. When it comes to the Galaxy S20 FE, it does have that fast charging, but right off the box they only give you a 15-watt charger, but it does support up to 25 watts. With the iPhone 12, it can support up to 20 watts, but of course you need to buy your separate adapter. But of course, if you look at the speed, the OnePlus 8T does better. But if you look at these two phones here, the S20 FE and iPhone 12, they do have wireless charging. On the iPhone 12, you have something called MagSafe, which basically is a fancy thing that Apple is doing with their wireless charging so that they can charge you more. With the S20 FE, you have your wireless charging and also your reverse wireless charging. So basically, if you have any other stuff, like if you have some earbuds, your buds life, you can just pop it on the back here and it will charge up wirelessly. So on all of these three phones, they have the latest and greatest processors inside of them. On the S20 FE and OnePlus 8T, you get your Snapdragon 865. No 865 Plus, but the 865 still does very well. On the iPhone 12, you have your A14 Bionic chip, which is the latest and greatest from Apple. So in terms of usage, overall, gaming, some social media, media, to be honest, I don't really experience any differences in them. But I would say maybe I would give it to the iPhone 12 because in terms of the whole optimization part of it, overall usage, the fluidness, I would actually give it to the iPhone 12. It just definitely does feel a little bit better compared to these other two phones. So now let's talk about the OS on these phones, and 3 of these phones are very different from each other. So you're going to start off with the OnePlus 8T over here. It comes with Oxygen OS 11 on top of Android 11. It's one of the first few phones coming out with, Android 11 other than of course the Google Pixel. So using this phone, to be honest, it's the fastest and the simplest phone to use. So if you're coming from an iPhone or some other brands and you don't want to be bogged down by so many things, get the OnePlus 8T. It's the most simple software there is out there. Don't get me wrong, it does have tons of features, but like I said, it doesn't bog you down with a lot of these ads, a lot of bloatware. So using this phone, it's fast, it's snappy, and with that 120Hz display, it is very fluid. You have stuff like, swiping down from the home menu to access your quick settings. You have your double tap to wake, double tap to off. You have a lot of these features that a lot of people will use every day, which I really do like. Next up here, we have the S20 FE, and it does come with One UI 2.5. It is not yet updated to Android 11, it will come soon. And to be honest, I've been using One UI for quite some time and I really do like it. It is pretty similar to what you're going to have on the OnePlus 8T. You have your swipe down to access your quick settings, you have your double tap to wake and so on. But it does have tons more features compared to the 8T. So if you like something like Samsung Pay, Samsung Pass, all these other editing features, one-handed mode, you're gonna like the One UI on the S20 FE. And lastly here we have the iPhone 12 with iOS 14. And this one definitely is just the most different among these two other phones. It's its own software in its own right. And yes, the specs like I mentioned before may not look a lot, but with the optimization of iOS 14, I've been using this for quite some time and it's actually pretty good. It does have certain stuff over here baked in. We have widgets now. We have some other added features like what you're gonna find on some Android phones that they put it over here. But in terms of the overall usage, what you see over here is basically what you're gonna get. And another thing that I want to talk about before we go on to the last part is about the security issue. So with the S20 FE and OnePlus 8T, you have your fingerprint and also your face unlock, which of course in 2020 is pretty helpful because we are wearing a lot of face masks. So a lot of times, sometimes before this, you just put up your phone, it kind of unlock very fast. But now you have your fingerprint scanner, which would be more helpful in this climate, in this kind of situation we are in. But with the iPhone 12, yes, it does get a little bit more complicated because it only has face unlock. It is the most secure among these two, but in 2020, where all of us are wearing a lot of face masks, it's a bit annoying because you can't really use it. So you have to swipe up, type in your passcode, and it will get you in. So in terms of extra features, there's not much in it between these three phones, but on the S20 FE and iPhone 12, you get your IP rating, which of course is something you don't get on a phone like here, the OnePlus 8T. So in case if you do drop it in like a pool or whatever, it may not give you that extra protection. So that is it. This is the full comparison between these three phones here, the 8T, the S20 FE, and the iPhone 12. Do let me know in the comments which one you guys think is better, which one you are planning to get, and of course leave a comment if you're already using one. How's the experience so far? For me personally, I'll go for the S20 FE. It does have everything I need in an Android phone, but that's just my opinion. So that is it. If you enjoyed this video, do click that like and smash that subscribe button down below for more videos like this in the future. Do also follow me on my socials as well on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and also here on YouTube and Dr. Hammerstack. So that is it. This is Dr. Hammerstack. Stay safe, take care, and wash those hands.